Good afternoon. Myself Supriya Naik, hosting this program. I welcome one and all for 73rd episode of Creative Online Talks. Creative. Cre means creativity, active means activeness. To be active, we need creativity. Vision of creative to build constructive thinking on various domains. Our main focus on non-textual, non-academic, non-syllabus related concepts. Creative is a platform to subject experts to present their experience, work, reports, and many more with interested audience. Every Saturday, Creative organize weekend talks on different concept around 3 to 4 p.m. on Zoom platform and live streaming on our YouTube channel, Creative GBD. Creative thankful to all our resource persons for engaging us with their knowledge. Outbreak and pandemics are frequent events in human history. Some of them take on pandemic proportion, reaching populations on different continents. Several pathogens that infect humans are derived from other animal species. It is evident that most human infections originate from pathogens that were transmitted from non-human animals to human through a process known as zoonotic spillover. Today's creative topic is hunting wildlife zoonotic spillovers. To present this, we have Dr. Vikram Aditya sir with us today. I call Panindra to introduce today's speaker. Over to Pani.
Good afternoon. I'm Panindra, a creative volunteer. Dr. Vikramaditya currently works as a principal scientist of wildlife studies, Bangalore. He has a master's in zoology and a PhD in wildlife ecology. His PhD work was on studying the impacts of land cover change on mammal diversity and distribution patterns in and around the Papikonda National Park in the northern eastern Ghats landscape. His current research is focused on hunting, wildlife trade, and its impact on wildlife. His PhD research is focused on studying the effect of landscape changes and forest degradation on mammal distribution and diversity patterns in the neglected forest landscapes and identifying the habitat relationships of mammals across the landscape. His study area is the northeastern Ghats hill region spread across Andhra Pradesh and Odisha states. The Eastern Ghats landscape is a treasure trove of biodiversity. The contiguous forest of the northeastern Ghats offer some of the large habitats for 55 species of mammals. Due to their relatively isolated nature, diverse habitat types, and landscape features, he is studying the impact of landscape change on the diversity and distribution pattern of terrestrial, non-violent mammals in the tropical moist deciduous forest of Papikonda National Park, located in the northeastern Ghats of Andhra Pradesh. He is also identifying the factors water-driven landscape change in this region over the past 3 decades and how it impacted local communities. Him and his works on pangolins have been featured in National Geography. We welcome you today, sir, for our weekend talk.
Thank you very much.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, madam. Thank you, Supriya Garu, Supriya Aure, and Mr. Panindra. And thank you also to the creative team based in Gauri Vidnur for inviting me to share part of my recent work on hunting and wildlife trade. It's very good to be with you, and I hope I'll be able to tell you a little bit about my work today. So let me just start my screen share.
Yes, sir, visible. Sir, you're muted.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Vikramaditya. I work as a principal scientist at the Center for Wildlife Studies. This is an NGO based in Bangalore and a research institute. We have a PhD program and we have been working on wildlife conservation primarily in the Western Ghats and part of the Northeast since the year 1984. My work in the Center for Wildlife Studies is primarily focused on studying hunting patterns and monitoring wildlife trade, and trying to understand how this is impacting wildlife, especially threatened species across India. Just to tell you a little bit about hunting and wildlife trade. Hunting has long been a traditional practice across India and globally. Forest-dwelling communities and people who live close to forests and around the periphery of forest landscapes, they have access to forest resources, including plants and animals. So they have been harvesting wildlife as a food source for a very long time, and this has been a traditional practice worldwide. It still continues to be widely practiced in India. A large number of animals continue to be hunted across India, primarily in forests where these animals reside. So, for example, species like monkeys, langurs, rodents, bats, mongooses, porcupines, wild boar are very frequently hunted. Several species of deers, like in my work in the northern eastern Ghats of Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, I've very frequently seen barking deers, which is a small species of deer which lives in the forest. Barking deer being hunted. Several species of antelope, like the four-horned antelope, which is small antelope that is native to India. This is also hunted. Several species of birds are shot with small bows and arrows. Monitor lizards are hunted. Tortoises are also caught and hunted. So all of this happens in India very frequently. But since the populations of wildlife have come down so drastically in the past 3 to 4 decades, in 1972, India legislated its Wildlife Protection Act, which gave protection for several species of wild animals by listing them under schedules. So schedule 1, 2, 3, 4. So the species of wildlife that were listed under these schedules, any hunting of these species is completely banned by law. So these are protected species. For example, species like elephant, leopard, lions, tigers, gaurs, some species of deer. So all of these are placed under these schedules, schedule 1, 2, 3, or 4. So any hunting of these animals anywhere across India is completely banned by law. And the government of India also started a monitoring agency called the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, WCCB, to monitor any hunting and wildlife trade that happens across India. However, despite this, forest communities across India, especially tribal communities who live in the forest landscapes, they continue to hunt at a small scale. However, this has been largely for their own subsistence. So they only eat these animals. They didn't really used to trade these or sell it for money. So it was only for their own consumption. However, since the past 3 to 4 decades, there has been an increase in illegal wildlife trade. So illegal wildlife trade, what I mean by this is the sale of wild animals, especially protected animals, and the sale of products made from these animals. For example, rhino horns, or pelts made from leather, or ivory tools made from the elephant tusks. So these are products made from wildlife. So the sale of either wildlife or wildlife products, either domestically within countries within India or internationally, where the wildlife from one country is trafficked illegally abroad for sale in other countries. This is what is illegal wildlife trade. Illegal wildlife trade is a very big threat for wildlife globally, especially in countries like India, which are very rich in biodiversity. And this is a very large threat for wildlife. The scale of illegal wildlife trade also is very large. This is the fourth largest form of illegal transnational trade after narcotics, that is drugs, arms, and humans. So arms is weapons. So drugs, weapons, and human trafficking is the three largest forms of illegal international trade. Followed by these three is wildlife trade in illegal trade in wildlife. So illegal wildlife trade internationally has been driven by demand for trophies. So trophies are, the bodies of wildlife that have been hunted. People decorate them on walls and in their houses or as as prizes. That is called trophy hunting. This is wildlife products have also been driven by demand for ornaments or pets. Some species of birds, rare exotic birds, are kept as pets by very rich people in countries in the West, in Europe and the Americas, and even some in India and the Middle East also. Also, some species of big cats are kept as entertainment in zoos. They're called petting zoos. So large cats like tigers and lions, they kept as for entertainment, for people to come and take photos with them in zoos and in small privately owned zoos in Asia and the Middle East. There's also a very large market for illegal wildlife products, illegally traded wildlife products in countries like China and Vietnam, which have the largest demands for these products internationally. So most of the international trade in wildlife actually ends up in, actually is destined for countries like China and Vietnam, where it is used in traditional medicines. So traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, uses a lot of different wildlife products. And since many of the Chinese species are now so rare that they cannot hunt it anymore, these species like pangolins or some other species of small cats or bats, they come from countries in Africa and some countries in Asia also. So most of the illegal wildlife trade ends up in China and Vietnam. However, in India also, there's a very large, like I said, the hunting is very common in India also. It's not just that everything is going to China. In fact, from India, most of it doesn't go to China. It's domestically consumed itself. So, for example, if you go to forests in most parts of India, you can very easily see people going around with bows and arrows and traps. This what you see is a jaw trap. This is meant for catching small animals, rodents, porcupines, etc. You'll also see some people with guns, with walking in the forest looking for wildlife to hunt. The use of dogs is very common. Most people in India actually hunt with dogs only, because dogs are the ones which can quickly catch any animal and corner it. And by the time the animal is cornered, the people come with bows and arrows and they shoot it. They also use different kind of bows and arrows. So this one is for the button on the left. This arrow on the left is for shooting a bird at night, because the bird, if they're shot in the night, it needs to stay on the tree, otherwise it can fly away. So this is for shooting the birds at night. The one on the right is bamboo arrow. This is for shooting birds in daytime. The small one is enough. If it hits the bird, it can go and it can easily kill the bird. This one. And this metal arrow is for killing larger animals like wild boar or barking deers. You'll also see very commonly people using traps. This is a wire trap set inside a small bunch of sticks and twigs. This is meant to collapse this big bunch of sticks and twigs on the animal when it tries to pass inside that. So these are the kind of animals that are shot across India. Killing of gaurs is very common in the Eastern Ghats and Northern Eastern Ghats in Central India, as well as some parts of the Northeast. This is a wild boar that is being killed and skinned for cooking. This is a leopard cat. This is a protected species. It's under Schedule 1. So, it really doesn't make any difference whether the animal is protected by law or not, because local people, especially living in forests, they don't really know the difference. For them, any animal is the animal, and any animal is meat. So they usually go for any animal that they can get. Some more. This is a hyena that has been shot and skinned, and they were trying to, I think, sell the skin somewhere. So hyena is a very rare animal. It is related to cats. It's quite a large carnivore, and it lives. There's only one species of hyena that lives in India. People also hunt with these catapults, which they use for hunting small birds. But most commonly, you will see different people going around with bows and arrows. So this, you can see the different kinds of arrows here and the bow. So a little bit about zoonotic diseases now. So like Madam Supriya must have just told you, zoonotic diseases are diseases which are animal borne. So they come to humans from animals, non-human animals. So the animals could either be the host of the zoonotic disease, or they could be a vector. That means they could be carrying this disease with them in the wild form without getting affected by it. without getting sick by by the virus or by any pathogen. That means they are the host of this pathogen, or they could be the vector. That means they could be getting sick and they could also die uh, from this pathogen before passing it on to humans. So several diseases have emerged in recent years, which are all zoonosis, that is from wildlife to humans. And the risk of zoonosis is increasing because of hunting and destruction of natural habitats. As we go on destroying forests and natural habitats, there's no more space for wildlife to reside in. So we are increasingly coming in contact with wildlife because of there's no habitat for them left anywhere anymore. And this is increasing contact. And with increased contact with the wildlife, this is increasing the risk of zoonotic spillovers. That means this increased risk of contamination that the virus that lives in the wildlife can spill over to us, to humans. In second fact is that there is a lot of hunting, and with hunting also we are coming into contact with rare wildlife, and through the course of wildlife trade, people who hunt them, they try to sell them to buyers, and they put different species of wildlife together. They put bats and pangolins together, or they may put deer and some other carnivore together. So there's increased risk of cross-species contaminations, cross-species spillover also. That viruses that are residing in one species of, say, herbivore, they can, spill over into the other species, and in that species they could multiply. And when we try to buy it, or when we try to eat this wildlife, then they could affect humans. That they could spill over into humans and start a zoonosis. So the WHO World Health Organization website, it lists over 30 different zoonotic diseases of concern in recent years. And most of the new emerging diseases that we have in humans nowadays are all zoonoses. We all know about COVID-19, and we've all been badly affected by it in the past 2 years. But there have been many other different zoonoses that have come to us from wildlife because of our hunting and wildlife destruction and habitat destruction, for which we are the reason. Some examples that I can tell you, some deadly examples that you may already know are Ebola disease, which has a fatality rate of about 90%. So if 10 people get it, 9 people are going to die from Ebola. This is one of the most well-known zoonotic diseases, and very deadly one also. So the host for this virus is not yet completely known, but most scientists think that it could possibly be bats. And from bats, it came into primates, so apes like chimpanzees. And when humans hunted the chimpanzees and ate them, it spilled over into humans. And it has been recurring again and again from the past 30 years. I think the first one was in 1979 in Congo. This zoonosis has been mostly in Central Africa and West Africa. Congo, Cameroon, Gabon, Liberia, Central African Republic, these countries. Rabies, we all know, is a very well-known zoonotic disease. It resides in wild animals, several different species of wild animals, including dogs, bats, some monkeys. And when this animal bites us, then there's a risk of spillover to humans. And this is also a very deadly disease with almost close to 100% fatality rate. It's very difficult to recover from rabies. There are many other zoonotic diseases also. Some of you may know about Nipah fever, which again resides in bats, and through spillover from pigs, which act as vectors, it has come to humans. In India, there's also Casanur forest disease. Casanur is a town in, I think, western Karnataka, and the first case was reported from Casanur. And of course, it's there across the Western Ghats. It's there in Karnataka, Goa, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. So KFD. This is a disease that is resident. The host of this disease is primates and rodents, and through tick bites, it travels from these hosts to humans. And there are various other zoonoses that have spilled over into humans in recent decades. For example, H1N1 swine flu, which is a deadly form of zoonosis, a very deadly disease. There's also, nowadays we're hearing about monkeypox. There's also Lyme disease, West Nile fever, Marburg disease. Marburg is like Ebola again. There's hantavirus, anthrax, Lassa fever, Rift Valley fever, scrub typhus, Bolivian hemorrhagic fever, yellow fever, and herpes B. We all know about AIDS and bubonic plague. Both of these started as a zoonosis. AIDS started from I think gorillas, wild gorillas, when people eat them, and the AIDS virus spilled over into humans. This several decades back. After that, the AIDS, the HIV virus, which causes AIDS, separated in humans, and it has multiplied and become a different species that is now unique to only humans. So now the gorilla AIDS virus is different, and the human AIDS virus is different, although it came from the gorilla AIDS virus. I'd like to tell you a little about pangolins and how they are connected to COVID. There have been a lot of different debates going on, especially among the media, about a lot of speculation about how the COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 virus must have originated. So I'd like to tell you that coronaviruses are a very large family of viruses, and that they circulate in a lot of wildlife. So a lot of different species of wildlife has coronaviruses in it. So bats have several different kinds of coronaviruses. Palm civets are affected by coronaviruses. Camels have coronaviruses. Also pangolins. So coronaviruses have been recorded in all these mammals. The closest virus to the SARS-CoV-2 virus that scientists have found so far was this virus called RATG13. So RA stands for Rhinolophus affinis. This is a horseshoe bat. And TG is the place in China where it was discovered, Tongguan Cave, and it was discovered in the year 2013. So the closest match to SARS-CoV-2 virus that we have so far, it's a 96.2 percentage match at the whole genome level, has been from horseshoe bats found in a cave in southwestern China in the Yunnan province. That is the closest. However, very close matches to the SARS-CoV-2 virus have also been found in pangolins. And interesting thing about this is that there are multiple lineages which have been found. And these have been found only in trafficked pangolins. So pangolins which were rescued from illegal wildlife trade. So these pangolins were not native to China. They came to China through illegal wildlife trade from other countries, mainly Malaysia. So two different confiscations of pangolins happened, and the virus was found in both confiscations of pangolins. One happened in 2018, I think, and one happened in 2019. So one in Guangzhou province and one in Guangxi province. So these are two different provinces. So both of these confiscations had the coronavirus, and both of them were similar to both the RATG13 virus that was discovered from horseshoe bats and the human COVID-19 virus. Although they were not as similar as the bat coronavirus, but the part of the genome which was most similar in the Malayan pangolins, the Malayan pangolin coronavirus, is the receptor binding domain. So that is the part of the RNA of the virus of the protein of the virus where it latches onto the human cell, ACE2 receptor cell on the human throat. This was the closest in the pangolins. Whereas in the bat virus, this was not very close to the human SARS-CoV-2 virus. And this same gene was found slightly differently in these two sets of confiscated pangolins. So what this means is that very close viruses to the human COVID-19 virus are circulating in pangolins as well as bats. And through the course of wildlife trade, pangolins are somehow getting infected by these viruses from bats or possibly some other vector. And when humans engage in contact with these pangolins through wildlife trade and illegal hunting and selling these species for consumption as meat, then humans are getting, most likely humans must have gotten infected by this virus, SARS-CoV-2 virus. And then once it came into humans, it started spreading from human to human, and then it became an epidemic and a pandemic at a global scale, as you all know. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a real risk of not just COVID-19, but number of other zoonotic infections that could come to us from wildlife. And therefore, it is very important to conserve their habitat and and stop hunting and wildlife trade as much as possible to be able to protect ourselves from such risks of such zoonotic spillovers. So these are the papers which talked about the links of these pangolin coronaviruses and the bat coronaviruses with the COVID-19 virus. So the main point that I'm trying to say is that the wild pangolins did not have any coronavirus infection, whereas the pangolins that were caught from wildlife trade had coronaviruses. Both two different interceptions that resulted in two different confiscations had coronavirus infections. So wildlife trade is ultimately what is responsible for the emergence of new zoonotic infections and increasing the risk of these infections getting into human beings. I'll tell you a little about pangolins also. We have been working on pangolins and how hunting and wildlife trade has been affecting them for the past 3 to 4 years. So pangolins are a group of 8 species of mammals. They are distributed across Asia. There are 4 species in Asia: the Chinese pangolin, the Philippine pangolin, the Sunda pangolin, and the Indian pangolin. And there are 4 species in subtropical Africa, subtropical in southern Africa. That is white-bellied pangolin, giant pangolin, black-bellied pangolin, and the ground pangolin. In India, we have 2 species of pangolins. We have Indian pangolin across peninsular India, including South India, and we have Chinese pangolin in the north, the Himalayan region, and the northeast region. So all 8 species of pangolins are endangered. In fact, the 4 Asian species are critically endangered. They are very, very close to extinction. They are also happen to be the most widely trafficked species in illegal wildlife trade globally. So most illegal wildlife trade confiscations that happen internationally from that go from Africa to Asia, Africa to China, or Asia, other Asian countries to China, most of these happen to be pangolin confiscations. So as a group of 8 animals, they are the most widely trafficked animals in illegal wildlife trade globally. All of them are endangered or critically endangered, and all of them are listed under Appendix 1 of the CITES Convention. The CITES is an international agreement on wildlife trade. So India is also a party to this agreement. So this agreement regulates wildlife trade. And Appendix 1 is the list of species under which completely trade is banned, is not allowed. So all the 8 species of pangolins are currently under CITES Appendix 1. So the populations have fallen very drastically. Indian pangolin, it was a species of least concern in 1996. But by 2014, it has become endangered. And in 2019, it would become, in the latest assessment in 2019, it has been updated to critically endangered animal. So they are very rare now in the forest. It's very, very difficult. Even local people have very rarely seen pangolins. In India, we have 2 species, like I said, Indian and Chinese pangolins. Both of them are protected under Schedule 1. They are very widely hunted in India also. In India, nearly 6,000 pangolins have been seized from illegal trade between 2009 and 2017. And there has been a lot of research going on nowadays on pangolins and wildlife trade, and particularly after COVID happened, a lot of research has been happening on trying to understand what is the link of pangolins. How close are the coronaviruses that exist in pangolins? How close are they to the human SARS-CoV-2 virus, which has caused COVID-19? But this has not reduced the wildlife trade in pangolins at all. Pangolins continue to be hunted down and traded illegally at a very alarming rate. Between the year 1976 and 2000, roughly 776,000 pangolins were traded legally in the international market. Before 2000, it was a legal trade allowed in CITES. After 2000, all the 8 species were placed under Annex 1, which banned any trade. Which banned the legal trade, and trade in pangolins became illegal worldwide. However, even though it became illegal, there has been an increase in illegal wildlife trade now between 2000 and 2020. Close to 1 million pangolins have been smuggled in illegal wildlife trade between 2000 and 2020. So our study has been in the northern Eastern Ghats region. This is Andhra and Orissa. This region, it's very heavily forested. Eastern Ghats, as you may know, is a 1,600-kilometer long hill region. It's dominated by deciduous forests, and it is one of the oldest geological formations in the world. There are several different tribal communities that live here. There are Koyas, Kondareddis, Nayakpods, Gonds, Sauras, and Kadabas. This region is called Northern Eastern Ghats. It's the northernmost part of the Eastern Ghats landscape. It's half in Andhra and half in Orissa, and there's also a small part in Chhattisgarh. As a region, this has the lowest coverage of protected areas. So even though there's a lot of forest, there's only one or two sanctuaries in this region. The rest is all outside wildlife sanctuaries. So we did our study in this region, the Papikonda National Park, and the buffer around Papikonda. And we expanded later on to the larger northern Eastern Ghats also. This is what the region looks like. This is all, it goes from 20 meters above sea level to about 850 meters above sea level. So the lowest portion is dry deciduous forest. And as you go higher, you enter into moist deciduous forest. So the landscape is primarily like this. It's mostly moist deciduous forest. And in the highest region, you have some evergreen forest also. So pangolins are hunted very widely in this landscape. And not just pangolins, but other wildlife as well. But pangolins do not have any protection. As you can see, they are covered with scales. That is because they eat ants and reptiles, and ants and termites. They do not have any teeth. They only have this long tongue. You may have seen this tongue here. So they have this long tongue. They use this to suck out the ants and termites from the burrows, and they are covered with scales. They are the only animals which have scales. They do not have any defense. They cannot run. They cannot fight back. So for human beings to hunt them, it's very easy. They just have to go close to them, and the pangolin will roll itself up like this. It will roll up into the ball like this. It does not try to fight. It does not try to run. It doesn't have any defense. So it's very easy for people to pick it up and take it away. So what we noticed is that the hunting peaks in the monsoon and winter time, when just after the rains. And that is where the time when the pangolins are most active. That is because the ants reproduce just after the rains. And the ants are also moving because the ant hills are all flooded by water. So that is the time when pangolins are also most active. There are nocturnal species also. They are mostly active at night. So pangolin hunting takes place mostly in the night and primarily in the monsoon and winter time. The meat is mostly consumed, and the scales are sold at huge prices. So earlier, people didn't know that there's a huge black market and illegal wildlife trade for pangolins. So the people who used to catch them, local people, they would just kill the animal, and then they would eat the meat and they would throw it away. They were not trying to target pangolins as such. But now people know that there's a huge market for pangolin trade, for illegally caught pangolins. Now they're trying to sell them at huge prices. Now people also use scales as a defense against black magic. Many people across India believe in black magic. So they use the scales as, they think the scales of the pangolin can protect them from black magic. So what they do is they cut the scale and they make a ring out of it, and they wear the ring on their fingers. They also believe that pangolin scales can help in the treatment of piles and some other diseases. There is not much like large scale smuggling or trade that goes abroad from India, from the Eastern Ghats region. Most of what is hunted is all consumed locally, and the sale also happens locally. However, from some parts of India, there is some international trade, especially in the north and northeast. There's a bit of international trade that happens because the close proximity of international borders from that region. This is how the pangolins are caught and hunted. So it's like I told you, it's very easy to catch pangolins. People just have to, wait for them near their burrows. Once the animal comes out of the burrow, the people catch it, and then they hit it with a stick and it's dead. And then they weigh it. They'll tell you, they record everything on the phone and they send it by WhatsApp. They give the price also that they want. They write it on a piece of paper and they put it on the animal like this. People use the pangolin scales to make rings. Like I said, they believe that these rings will help them with good fortune, get some good luck, and that this wearing the scales of the pangolin, like it is protecting the pangolin, it will protect the humans also from black magic or some kala jadoo, like they say. So we wanted to study how much pangolin trade was going on across India. So we compared what happened during the 2020 lockdown, first 4 months of March to May, June, when there was lockdowns in India. We compared what happened then with what happened previously. So what we noticed is that in 2020, the pangolin trade increased by 3 times. Pangolin hunting and trade in wildlife, it has increased by 3 times compared to before COVID. Now, this was because of the lockdown. It was very easy for people to move in the forest. There was no monitoring or vigilance activity. So pangolin trade happened increased by 3 times. Also because people left the cities and they went back to villages and forest areas. So they had much more access to the forest during that time. Also, another reason is that people lost jobs. There was nothing to do, so they were also looking for wild food which they could trade and then they sell it at some large prices. So because of this, during the COVID lockdowns, pangolin trade, wildlife trade, in fact, in general, has increased a lot. So these are all instances of pangolins being hunted illegally and being smuggled in the last 2 years since 2020. And this is the same case internationally. 9 tons of pangolin scales were seized in Hong Kong, I think in 2021. This was probably the largest seizure of pangolin scales in wildlife trade in Hong Kong in the past 2 decades. So to conclude, hunting of wildlife across India has been largely opportunistic. So people would only hunt if they came across something. But now it has become extremely targeted because there's a market for wildlife and for wild meat. So now it has become extremely targeted, and this is affecting species like pangolins in large numbers, because pangolin numbers are extremely low, and the sightings have become extremely rare now. And because they have become so low and rare, there's also increasing demand for them. And pangolins have significantly declined in their population over the past 2 decades. This is both the case in India and worldwide also. And therefore, preventing both the domestic and international illegal trade in wildlife is the key to conserving pangolins and other threatened wildlife that are affected by hunting and wildlife trade. And this is in the long term beneficial for humans, not just beneficial, but absolutely necessary because of the risk of what happens when something like COVID-19 happens again. So there are a lot of, like I said before, there are a lot of diseases that exist in wildlife, in wild animals, and by increasing hunting and wildlife trade and by destroying the habitat, we are increasing the chances of these zoonoses spilling over into humans. So if you would like to learn more about wildlife and hunting trade and wildlife trade and hunting, you can visit this website. UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, has a consortium called the International Consortium on Combating Wildlife Crime, ICCWC. You can find some resources on that. Also, you can visit Traffic website. Traffic is an international organization that monitors wildlife trade. Also, USAID, United States Agency for International Development, they have an office on combating wildlife trade. So you can visit these websites if you want to learn more about wildlife and wildlife trade. So I'd like to acknowledge Creative team of Gauri with Noor, my funders, Rafford Foundation, National Geographic Society, Mohammed bin Zayed Species Conservation Fund, K.T. Adamson Conservation Fund, the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, and my friends and my field assistants and volunteers for the support so far. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If any questions, you can raise your hand or you can unmute and ask the questions.
Sir, in
Any
which
Ritesh, you can ask the question.
sir, in which country do pangolins are more?
So Ritesh, pangolins are there in many countries in the world, but they are only in Africa and Asia. So Southern Africa, Central and Southern Africa, and Asia. So in Asia, they are there in India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Southeast Asian countries. So China, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, like that. But it's very difficult to say which country they are more, because they are very rare and they are very rare. They are not present in large numbers anywhere. So
Sir,
maybe
is there
I can
any
say maybe
sanctuaries?
South Africa. Yeah. There are sanctuaries to protect wildlife in general, but there are no sanctuaries specifically for pangolins. So pangolins live in mostly in forests. So there are sanctuaries in the forest which can save pangolins also.
Sir.
Did that answer your question, Ritesh?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir,
You got your answer?
Yes, sir. And if we go to national park, we can see that pangolins. National park.
No, Ritesh. They are very rare now. They are very, very rare. It's very difficult to see pangolins. Maybe you can only see it in the zoo, and that too, there's only one zoo I think in India where you can see. That is Bhubaneswar Nandankanan Zoo. I think other zoos don't have it, probably. I don't know if Bangalore Zoo has it, but I think it does not have.
Yes, sir.
They used to be common before, but they have become very rare now.
Sir, will they eat that pangolins?
Yeah. Local people eat the pangolins. It's very easy to catch pangolins actually, because they don't move fast also, and they cannot fight back. They don't have teeth. They don't have anything. There is no defense for them.
Yes, sir.
sir, pangolins belongs to which family, sir?
Pangolins, there are 8 species. So all the 8 species belong to only one family, Manidae. Manidae family. And all of them belong to only one order. It's called Pholidota. They are very unique actually, because they are not related to any other mammals. So they are their own order. They are their own family.
Okay.
So
Sir,
they
any
have
government taking any precautions regarding this conservation activities or protecting them? It's become critical and dangerous now. So
Yes.
is any programs are going on?
Yes, the Indian government has protected them long back actually under law. So they are Indian pangolin and Chinese pangolin. We have 2 species in India. So both of them are protected under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act. So any hunting, any trade in pangolins is completely prohibited under law. It's punishable by 10 years in jail or something like that is there. So Indian government has protected the pangolin species long back. But what happens is at an implementation level, it's very difficult to implement that law. So, what happens in the forest is, it's all illegal. So it's very difficult to enforce the law in the forest. And this is the same thing that's happening in other countries also. And also in India, we have this Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, WCCB. That is a government agency which monitors wildlife trade, and it tries to combat wildlife trade. So they also have been working from a long time, and they are the ones who actually have been arresting hunters, wildlife traders, and rescuing pangolins for many years. But this is a very small percentage. Most of the trade that happens, we don't know also. So yeah, it's very difficult actually for pangolins.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question, ma'am. Sir, how pangolins are helpful to mankind or ecosystem, sir?
So pangolins are anteaters. So they eat ants and termites. And by doing that, they help the forest ecosystems by controlling the insect population. Because if there are a lot of ants and if there's a boom in ant and termite population, then all the trees will be damaged. And that in turn, it will affect the herbivores and that will affect the carnivores. So pangolins are at a functional level, they are very useful like that because they control the insect population, primarily the ant and the termite, which are the largest by volume. They are the largest number of insects. So they are very important part of forest ecosystem actually.
What
Thank
type
you,
of food it eats?
It can only eat insects. It can only eat ants and termites. It can't eat anything else because it doesn't have teeth.
Only tongue on.
Only tongue. But the tongue is longer than the animal itself.
Oh, okay.
The tongue is longer than the pangolin.
Sir, other wild animals like tiger or lion,
Yeah.
they will eat, sir. Pangolins.
They try to eat.
They
They
will
try
consume.
to eat pangolins. Yeah, they try to eat, but
They
it's
have
very
scales,
difficult. They
sir.
cannot. Yeah, they have scales. So it's very. They try. I've seen videos of lions trying to eat pangolins. They try to eat it and they give up. They can't eat, and then they go. So the scales are very, very hard. The scales are very hard. But interestingly, the scales are only made up of keratin. So that keratin is what is there in our scales also, in our nails also.
Yes, sir.
The same material. It's a very, very hard protein, which is there in the pangolin scales. Only thing, it's in pangolins, it's very dense. So that's why the scales become very hard, and the carnivores cannot attack it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So what is the current research going on these pangolins?
So people have been trying to understand pangolin ecology for some time now, but it's extremely difficult because pangolins, they are no longer found in. I mean, they are no longer easily found in forest. So whatever research is going on has been mostly on the confiscated pangolins that have been rescued from trade. So some research on their, what kind of viruses they have in them, what other pathogens they have on them, or what insects they have on their bodies. So this kind of research we have been doing in India. Some organizations have been doing. Of course, internationally, a lot of research is going on the virus load of pangolins, especially coronaviruses. What coronaviruses they have in them. Especially this has increased after COVID. But that's it. Otherwise, nothing else.
Any questions? Sita ma'am?
Nice talk, Vikram, Dr. Vikram, but do you feel, for example, as part of wildlife conservation team, how often do you feel frustrated by inability to actually conserve?
Yes, thank you, madam. Yeah, I feel very frustrated very often actually, because whatever we have been trying to do, what government has been doing, what other researchers, what NGOs have been doing, it does not seem to be having any effect, any positive effect so far. So this is definitely very frustrating. And many people actually stop doing this and they start doing some other job. They get into some job because it doesn't have any immediate outcome. But the wildlife conservation itself is like that. It takes a long time for animal populations to recover and to rebound. Even if there is 100% effective action taken today on the wildlife, that will have an impact many years later, or maybe many decades later also, because it takes that long for the animal populations to recover, and the generations times are so long that it cannot have any immediate impact. So I think intrinsically itself, the conservation is like that. We cannot expect any short-term outcomes or benefits from what our actions are. It may have an impact in the long term or maybe years later. So that is one of the things I feel, that maybe what we are doing today, we cannot see the outcomes immediately, but maybe it can have some outcome later. Maybe it can protect the species and the forest. So that is what I feel, and that is what I keep telling
So
myself
are there
also.
any ideas of actually letting the younger, hello? Yeah.
Hello?
So are there any ideas about letting people know at least some of the rare success stories of conservation
Yes.
through electronic media, and because youngsters would like to, you must be working with a lot of volunteers, I'm sure, and
Correct.
youngsters would like to volunteer for this, but
Yes.
yeah, to motivate them, are
Yeah.
there any new ideas? Yeah.
Yes, one good thing is that young people are already motivated actually, and they are the ones who have the most energy because they have not seen the negative side of this, and they already come with a lot of energy and motivation. So regarding success stories, I don't know how much we can tell them, but definitely we tell them about Project Tiger, or how the Indian government has succeeded in protecting tigers so far, and how elephants have recovered. Such kind of stories we do, not just our organization, but many other groups are doing that. But good thing about youngsters is that they have a lot of energy, and I always encourage youngsters, even people who are listening to this talk, if you
Sir, for
are
youngsters,
interested and you have energy, please come and volunteer. You're always welcome, and we would love to have you, and your assistance is always needed, and it's very much welcome also. So yeah.
Yes,
There was a
for
question.
is there no recently, which is done in Kuno project,
Sorry.
Project Cheetah, which is done
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Kuno project, Kuno National Conservation Forest. What is your
Correct.
opinion on that? Because one of our associate, Dr. Krishna, is working on that, where I used
Okay.
to talk to him, who is a
Acha.
medical doctor. So
Okay.
similar efforts are there any other than this cheetah, this particular animal which you are today describing, or any other animals? Such
Yeah.
steps are helpful, or what is the opinion?
So if you're asking my personal opinion, I would say that's not helpful at all, actually. Bringing African cheetahs to India and introducing them in Kuno, I think it's a harebrained and a completely wrong idea. Because that Kuno National Park, it was supposed to be for lions, Asiatic lions. So there are two kinds of lions in the world: the African lions and Asian lions. African lions are more than 10,000 in numbers. They are fine. Even though they are endangered, they are still fine. Asian lions are only native to India. Only one state is there, Gujarat, Gir National Park. And there are only about 300 to 350 lions, only in one small place. Government of India has been trying to move those lions to other places also, so that they are safe. If something happens in Gir National Park, for example, even a fire happens, all 300 are at risk, and everything can die at once. So this Kuno National Park was meant as a second home for the Asian lions. But unfortunately, for several different political and non-political reasons, Gujarat government has refused to relocate those lions to other places. And that is why this Kuno project had failed, because it was prepared for the relocation of the Asian lions. So instead of relocating Asian lions, they have brought cheetahs from Africa there. So for me, I do not know. I don't understand the reason for that at all, because they are African cheetahs. They are not Asian cheetahs. Asian cheetahs are extinct. The Indian cheetahs are extinct. The last Indian cheetah died in 1948. So even if you bring African cheetahs to Kuno, that is not going to help. That is not the same as the Indian cheetahs. Whereas we have lions, Indian lions are there in Gujarat. So this Kuno was supposed to be home for the Indian lions actually. But yeah, so that is my thoughts with regards to the African cheetahs in Kuno National Park. With regards to the pangolins, the problem is very difficult actually, because they are not restricted to any single place. They are there across India. Even now, pangolins are there across many parts of India. They are not restricted to one or two places. So habitat is not a problem for them. They can live in many different habitats. The problem for pangolins is that they are very badly affected by wildlife trade. And as long as hunting and wildlife trade in pangolins does not stop, it's very difficult for their populations to recover. So in India, there is Nandankanan Zoo in Orissa, Bhubaneswar. They have been breeding these pangolins in captivity. They have bred about 20-25 young pangolins so far, and then they are releasing them. And we need more such places like Nandankanan Zoo in other places in India. Probably every single zoo in India should take up this pangolin breeding program, so that at least the pangolins that have been caught from wildlife trade, they are rescued and they are rehabilitated there, and then they can be released into the wild. That can increase their population. In Africa and other countries, there are already several such projects going on. I think in India, we need to start by introducing the captive breeding program in other zoos also. Yeah.
Ritesh, you want to ask?
Sir, for youngsters, motivation, there is like NSS.
Yeah.
For preserving animals, they will go any village and they'll motivate.
Yes. Yes, Ritesh. Yeah, I think if you're interested in nature and wildlife, I think you can start from your own school, Ritesh. I think I'm sure your school will be having some club, some nature club or environment club. You can join that. If you're already not in that, you can join that. Or you can get together with your friends and start a club of your own. And you can go and start doing some bird watching. Every Sunday you can go to some nearby areas and you can plant some trees or take up some activities. So even if there is no club like that for in your school, I think you should start one. That will be very good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Other than this, how to join this type of activities, sir? Is any associations or any organizations who call the internships, and any suggestions or any regarding this, sir?
Yeah, there are a lot of organizations, ma'am. Actually, Bangalore has a lot of organizations working on wildlife conservation and nature.
Is there any minimum qualification required for this to join, sir?
No. No, there is no
Any
qualification
training?
required. Anybody can join.
Okay.
Anybody can join. Everybody loves nature, and everybody should be able to, do what they want. So I don't think, at least most of the organizations don't ask for any qualification. Maybe some of them might, but I think others will not.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Okay, sir. Shall we end here?
Okay, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time and your knowledge. Thank you for engaging us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ritesh telling thank you for you. Okay, thank you very much, sir. From Creactive, we are very thankful to you. And I thank all the participants for the time with us. Thank you very much.